Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I'll bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico Easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
The Ticket. Michigan Insider Podcast is brought to you in part by defense attorney and WTKA legal insider Joe Simon. Find Joe at themichigandefenders.com.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Back on with our guy, John U. Bacon. This has a way of, like I said, buttoning it up, putting it in a nutshell. Mark Emmert and company looting the NCAA. All right, so let's talk about another NCAA discussion and watching the sort of the shock waves from the earthquake that was NIL. I mean, you've seen, these player movement. You are seeing these NIL deals come about. We just see the ground beneath us changing. Now you see some teams, anchor teams in the Big 12, potentially on their way to the SEC. Texas and Oklahoma, a story that broke in the Houston Chronicle as A&M's, Jimbo Fisher was going up to speak to folks. The SEC, you had Russ Bjork ready with a statement. I think Texas A&M was the leak. They're screaming bloody murder about this move potentially happening. I think it's way too late. I think this move is going to go down. What say you, Bakes? And what do you think the ramifications of this move are for, say, the Big Ten? Is the Big Ten then, do they need to go to 16? Are they okay standing pat? What do you think this means for the rest of college football and specifically the Big Ten?
As to the likelihood of this happening, first of all, when you first hear it, you kind of go, huh? But I do that a lot less these days. When I recall leaving the Michigan State press box after a game in 2012, and on the way home, they're saying that Rutgers and Maryland are going to be in the Big Ten on Monday. I thought, that's impossible. I would have heard something. Back then you could shock me. Now you can't. So with Oklahoma and Texas potentially joining the SEC, here's the measure to gauge the likelihood. Is it a short-sighted solution based on greed? If both are yes, then it's probably going to happen. So the answer is here. I wouldn't doubt it for a second. I think it's short-sighted. It's based on greed. But whatever. And, they had a great thing going for years nationwide. The conferences around the country, in my opinion, defined our geographical cultures better than any term like Midwest. What's a Midwest? Is it Western Pennsylvania? Does it go to Oklahoma? No. The Midwest is all over the place, of course. Big Ten is Great Lakes. Big 8 back then was the Plain States, of course. The Southwest Conference back in the 80s was Texas. The Southeast Conference is just what it says. Atlantic Coast was just what it says. Louisville is not on the Atlantic Coast. You can look it up. Neither is Syracuse. But back then it all made sense. Pac-12 is Pac-12. And they jumbled all that, 10, 15 years ago, of course. And now they're going to do it all again for greed, which will leave the Big 12, by the way, will be a husk of itself. Iowa State's your marquee team at that point. What do you have left?
Right. No offense, Iowa State, but you're right.
No offense. Hey, great year, Campbell. Congrats.
Yeah, but you are anchoring.
Boomer Sooners.
Right. Yeah, you are anchoring a conference if you're Iowa State. I think you can see how this does it add. How significantly does this add to the bottom line? Ira said the estimates are upwards of $20 million per school, which is not chump change.
Right.
Bakes, now you could maybe make the case that eventually SEC revenues are going to climb there anyway. I think you can make that case, but
probably.
But the blockade, I sort of likened it to a blockade to Ira. This is the SEC protecting its territory by preventing those programs from going to the Pac-12, going to the Big Ten. Now you're making it harder for those leagues to establish themselves in your footprint.
It's very true. And look, and what is your quote-unquote footprint now? It extends through the bottom third of the country. If you're getting out to Oklahoma and Texas, of course. And look, I mean, if you got Texas A&M, and Oklahoma, you have most of the viewers in that area as well. It's crazy stuff. And look, it's like recruiting players. It's not only that your school got this hotshot quarterback; it's that your rival didn't. So it's a +1 for you and a -1 for them. And likewise, it's not only that SEC will get potentially Texas and Oklahoma; it's that Michigan, Big Ten and Pac-12, whatever, can't get those teams. And we have both heard. I've heard. Oklahoma and Texas have floated up on the Big Ten radar more than once. You already got Nebraska, so it's not that big a stretch. So that has been a possibility, and I'm sure one that the SEC is well aware of. I mean, if you get those guys on the same conference, they have no need to play anybody outside their conference. I mean, just play your division and 3 crossover games, and you got your schedule. And they'll play Furman or somebody crazy, but that's what Alabama does. But that will be – it already is the most dominant conference in football, certainly, and that will make it almost impossible for almost anybody else to catch up, I think. Who could the Big Ten possibly get to compete with that? From a marketing point of view, you could get Notre Dame, which you're not going to get. There are no other Oklahomas and Texas out there in terms of fan base, national appeal, and so on, tradition, that you could get to catch up. At that point, the SEC has won the race probably forever.
So – real quickly, but I have a question for you, a follow-up about this Texas A&M thing. But that's why Seth's point yesterday on the show, which we talked about, is do you just create like a 4-team division out west of Cal, Stanford, USC, and UCLA and offer them to leave the Pac-12 and join the Big Ten? And you have – because those together do have a little bit of pull. But you're right. And the fact is, John – not fact, but my opinion on this is I don't think the SEC's ever wanted – after reading all this stuff today and yesterday – I don't think the SEC's ever really cared about Texas A&M. If they kept A&M in the dark for 6 months, according to the reports from the Austin American-Statesman this morning, that if the SEC kept Texas A&M in the dark for 6 months about this, they did not care what they thought about this. They did not care what their reaction would be about this, and that they've always wanted Texas all along. And Sam and I were talking during the break. If I'm A&M, I'm digging through my old contracts, and I'm finding out if I have a way to sue and get out and say, give me a whole bunch of money because you promised us we were going to be the Texas team in the SEC, and you didn't really want us. I'm not saying it's going to work out that way, but to me, it looks like Texas A&M to the SEC was always a ploy to get Texas and Oklahoma. That's the way it reads today. Because if they spent 6 months keeping this secret, John, nothing in college sports stays a secret for 6 months.
You're right.
And they kept A&M in the dark for 6 months while having these conversations. Yeah, they didn't care about A&M. They were always using A&M to get to Texas and Oklahoma. That's the way it looks like to me.
I would say, in hindsight, it's true. I did not see that at the time. When they first got A&M, I thought, hey, good for A&M. And on some level, I hated seeing it. Of course, it was a great rivalry broken up and one of the best in college football. That's why I always hate seeing that broken up. But I thought, you know what? If Texas is kind of yanking you around in the Big 12, and they're, since DeLoss Dodd, the crazy AD at Texas, basically big-footed the entire conference, which ticked off Nebraska. Nebraska got to the Big Ten through Texas, being jerks and getting their own, ESPN station and blah, 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 not playing by the same rules as everyone else. So Texas A&M, Nebraska said, screw this, we're going to the Big Ten, of course. Colorado says the same thing, Pac-12, A&M to SEC, and A&M with the permanent chip on its shoulder. This is the classic, second university in a state, Kansas State, and so on. Most states have this. They thought, screw you, big brother, we're going to the SEC, ha, 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 only to find out you were bait, you knuckleheads. You're the pilot fish. You're the test case to see if it's going to work. And now you've been screwed behind your back. And you know what? I feel bad for A&M to a point, but not that much, because you know what? You left your home base. You did it to screw over somebody else. You did it to pocket some money. It's like dating I don't care if it's the homecoming king or queen, whatever, take your pick. But the homecoming royalty, thinking that, wow, you're going to prove your old ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend wrong. No, you're not. They're going to use you and throw you aside because he's the homecoming king and she's the homecoming queen. So you just got used and abused and thrown aside. And that's what happens when you mess with the SEC. All the SEC cares about is itself, And if you thought otherwise, you were a knucklehead going into it. So, as the book says, she's not that into you. Sorry.
Right. Hey, but look, Ira and I were talking yesterday, and I remember you saying, hey, Texas A&M is going to go to all the other members and say, hey, do you want your rival joining the league, South Carolina, your in-state rival? Do you want your in-state rival, Georgia, joining the league? We're a brotherhood. I was like, man, hell, I mean, Texas A&M there's no brotherhood, especially for Texas A&M. They're new. They just got there. You kidding me? They're going to be giving two craps about Texas A&M. Here we go. Right. Here we go, right?
I mean, you joined the league as a mercenary, and now you want to claim that blood's thicker than water. Man, it's not red, it's not clear, it's green, it's money, and you should have known that going in.
So Bakes, you said it's game over. You can't win this. So does that mean if you're the Big Ten, you're content standing pat at 14? Because I agree with you. I think Notre Dame's on its way to the ACC. I think that they see that as a more sort of the slate of opponents is more advantageous, if you will, easier to be a playoff representative and more beneficial for them now. If this new playoff format comes to be, you're kind of better off being in a conference. Notre Dame, that deference that you've been getting all these years is eroding before your eyes. So if you're going to go to a conference, you already have your other sports playing in the ACC. And the ACC, the only other team you really have to deal with is Clemson and occasionally North Carolina. I think that's where they would go. So does the Big Ten then stand pat? Or are you trying to have some other teams break their agreements? Are you trying to poach from other conferences? What do you do?
Great question, and the answer is whatever it is, it's too late for the reasons you described. The SEC has already gobbled up, or will have if they get Texas and Oklahoma. They've gobbled up the two you might have gotten. They gobbled up Missouri, which is not as marquee as the others, but that Missouri, to me, was the one that made the most sense for the Big Ten to pick up. Good rivalry with Illinois. Great school academically. The presidents care about that. The fans don't. But that's one of the few academic gems, one of the very few, I said it, academic gems in the SEC. Okay, Vanderbilt and Florida are your two others. There, you're done. There's your short list. Missouri, they've already got them. And like I said, what's left? And you're too late on Notre Dame. Notre Dame already has a three-quarter relationship, if you will, with the ACC. And you have them in hockey, and that's about all. Now, why?
Kick them out of hockey.
What's that?
Kick them out of hockey if they want to go join the ACC for everything now for football. Kick them out of hockey. Tell them to find a different dance partner.
I'd love to, but the sad fact is Big Ten hockey needs Notre Dame more than Notre Dame needs Big Ten hockey. So that's another self-serving thing, but whatever. Look, it's based on 100 years of mistrust. That's part of it. Based on the relationship with the SEC. I think also, no one's ever said this, but they've seen, all-time great top 10 powers, Penn State and Nebraska, come to the Big Ten and far from dominate. Those are bigger names where they were before, Penn State being independent and Nebraska being Big 12. And, is Notre Dame's brand, if you will, contingent on being fourth place in the Big Ten. That would not go over well with the alum. Furthermore, you already got the Midwest as far as viewership. Now you get more eyeballs on you and on the East Coast, which has more people, of course. So I don't know. So you're not going to get Notre Dame either, I don't think, unless Kevin Warren pulls off a hell of a trick. Delaney might have pulled it off, but Warren, year 2 or 3, doesn't have the juice, I don't think, to pull that one off.
Do you?
And keep in mind, Delaney didn't either. In fairness, Delaney tried for his full 30 years to pull it off, and he couldn't do it. So,
do you try to throw a wrench into the Texas-Oklahoma SEC thing? I don't even know if it's possible, but do you attempt that if you're the Big Ten and say, hey, wait, hold up, Austin is actually closer to Ann Arbor than it is to Tuscaloosa in just the environment in the town,
yeah.
Right?
Well, and you've got Nebraska, man. That is that is the rival, obviously. I think I probably would, because standing pat is not that appealing. I'd make a last-ditch effort for Notre Dame, all kinds of pressure there, and I would do it again with Oklahoma. You go from 14 to 16. Now you got a power conference, and finally, you've got the East and West balanced because, of course, you got Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan as the big names, not always the best records, but the big names. Michigan State, too, I think. Then the other side, now you got some real power on that side. Wisconsin, Iowa, Oklahoma. That'd be substantial, I think. I'd make an attempt. I don't know what their odds are. I wouldn't place them as very high. There's nothing the SEC won't do. That's the catch. Although, flip side is the Big Ten Network is still worth more. The teams here get paid more. The programs get paid more than they do in the SEC. And you're not dealing with Alabama. That's got to count for something. If you're Oklahoma, my pitch would be, you didn't like Texas? Meet Nick. You ain't going to like this any better. So,
all right, I got to squeeze this one in. We can talk about it more in depth next week because I know this will still be a topic. But the NFL, they highlighted a policy, not a policy change, but maybe a policy that a lot of the players, now I don't think there's any maybe to it, many players didn't know about it because the scenario never came to be last year where the NFL had to cancel a game due to COVID. But this year, if a game is postponed by requirement of government authorities or medical experts or at the discretion of the commissioner because of ongoing health concerns of an outbreak, it will be deemed a forfeit. If they can't find a suitable date to reschedule within the 18-week framework of a regular season, the game will be called a forfeit. If the original postponement of the game was caused by an outbreak among unvaccinated players for one team, it will result in a forfeit. And if a game results in a forfeit, it means a loss of game checks for both teams, Bakes. And you got players like, wait a minute. They're like, oh, wait, what? We lose game checks if there's an outbreak among unvaccinated players? Are you kidding? And it's not even my team. It's the other team. So you got players who are unvaccinated saying, oh, I'm in jail and this is, we are free. And it's like, wait a minute. Jail, you can leave if you want to, right?
Yeah.
Free, you gotta stay. You gotta go where if you're free, you gotta go where they tell you to go, right?
That's right. And by the way, in jail, they vaccinate you.
What do you make? I mean, this is the NFL and the NFL Players Association. Now, remember, this was collectively bargained.
Right.
This is so players not paying attention to the policy, but they are exerting a little pressure, a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Not a little.
So I asked you before, I said, do you think this is going to be an issue where players are looking across the locker room now? Hell, they're looking across the field and saying, hey, unvaccinated guy, I'm not concerned about you getting me sick. I'm not scared of the virus. I believe that's probably the case in that age group. But you might cost me a check. Go get vaccinated. Do you think that is, I asked you that question before. I'm really asking you that question now. Do you think that pressure player to player is going to be a factor now in getting to the vaccination levels that the NFL wants their franchises to be at?
Oh, hell yes, is the answer to that one. I know our time is tight here. This would have been a juicy one for 10 more minutes. First of all, kudos to the NFL, an otherwise often gutless league, certainly under Goodell. I think this is the right thing. That the first three rules, yes, yes, and yes. And look, I mean, it's a private business, and can't vaccinate me, kid, dude. If you went to school, you've already got about 5 vaccinations. Did you go to school? You have a polio vaccination. You know why? Polio is bad. That is why, and it's contagious. So we're not doing that. But the fourth one, that's the hilarious one, where both teams get their pay docked. Here's what I want: the all-time great cage match special. It's for those teams to play for nothing other than anger after that game was disqualified and you lost your check. I want to see that game where the Steelers are just beating the hell out of the Browns for costing them a game check. Those game checks, you only have, you don't get that many, and that's big money. Holy mackerel, that would be unbelievable knockdown dragout. That last one does surprise me. Peer pressure is going to work. It should work in this case. Look. Let's deal with stats and numbers and reality. And also with this other Delta variant going around, if we let COVID come back out of sheer stupidity, because that's what this is, holy mackerel, we're the dumbest society in the world. So there I said it. Bring me your tweets. Go ahead.
At John U. Bacon on Twitter. At John U. Bacon.
Hey, throw him in me. I got your back, Bakes.
At SamWeb77.
I think it's ridiculous.
I will take him to at Michigan Insider. At Ira in Ann Arbor. We'll take them all. Tag all of us.
And you know what? All these guys talking tough. I saw an article from Alabama, of course, yesterday from either a nurse or a doctor, I can't remember, talking about the patient she sees at the end of their lives with COVID, who are saying, begging to get the vaccine, and she has to tell them it's too late. You're going to die. You're given misinformation by the wrong people, and now, I mean, that's the serious business. So, everyone talks tough till you're on your deathbed. Then it looks a little different. So these knuckleheads, playing like Wild West and tough, dude. The microbes don't care about how tough you are. They don't.
All right. And unfortunately, we can't. You can't vaccinate Teddy. I can't vaccinate Noah and Quincy.
Exactly.
Grace can't be vaccinated. It's like, man, we're stuck. I'd get them vaccinated if we could. So anyway.
Yep. Exactly.
Bakes, hey man, you're our guy. This is why you're the man. We appreciate you. I know you're working. You take time out to come on and talk with us. So get back to what you were doing, and we will talk to you again next week.
I will do. By the way, I appreciate your amazing preparation. You tee me up like no one's business. You collect this stuff all week long, and people say, "Oh, does he share with you?" No, he doesn't. That's the quiz. So
blind quiz.
Right.
Sam, here's the whole point of our hour. Sam is very well prepared, and I can't be. So that's how it works.
Well, you do a great job, Bakes.
Well, you're very kind.
Appreciate you. We got to be out of here. Next time you hear from us, we will be broadcasting live from Jim Harbaugh's golf outing.
We'll be on a golf course.
We'll be on a golf course. That is absolutely right.
Don't worry, golf course. Sam will not beat you up.
Bring you some stuff from former players, some stuff from current coaches. Never know who might drop by on the next edition of the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports Ann Arbor, a Cumulus station.